Привет всем! С вами я, Дженни, это College Russian. Today we are doing a live stream of word roots. And today we are actually doing a word root that was requested by one of my viewers, which, by the way, you are all free to request word root videos and or songs or poems you'd like me to talk about. So today we are going to be doing the word root stoop, which means to step or so on and so forth. So the inspiration for that was just I'm walking around beautiful Washington, D.C. and thinking, наконец наступила весна. У нас очень красивая весна здесь, в Вашингтоне. So it's not like the spring stepped on Washington. I mean, that's what it means literally, but it's also a way of saying like it's come into effect or it's a begun kind of thing. So look how beautiful our spring is here in Washington. It's just amazing. Everywhere, pink, yellow, white, everything has these beautiful flowers everywhere. So yeah, it's very beautiful here in DC. Also, let me know if you can hear me okay in the comments. Some of my previous live streams have been having problems. That's part of the reason I haven't been doing live streams lately, because apparently the audio on some of my videos was sounding very bad. So just let me know if you can hear me okay. If you can't hear me, just let me know. I'm going to go ahead and get started otherwise. Also, yay, спасибо, Rachel. Also, I mentioned that I have a an announcement, and it's an exciting announcement for me. That is, finally, after many people asking what my Patreon is, I realized, oh, I guess YouTubers have Patreon accounts. So I did finally create a Patreon account. And then one of my viewers, I haven't even officially announced this, one of my viewers managed to find it and has already subscribed. So the membership perks on this are going to launch in June. I still haven't quite finished my college semester, so I need a little bit more time to finish that out. But this is very exciting because what I'm going to be creating is a Russian English language club. I had mentioned creating a conversation club, and this is where we're going to bring together my Russian viewers who watch me to practice English and my English speaking viewers who watch me to practice Russian. So I thought, what better way to bring both of those people together than to create a conversation club? Russian speakers can help learners learn Russian, and English speakers can help those people who are learning English. We can help them. So that's going to start happening, and that's going to be available for patrons. That will happen weekly, changing different times, just to make sure we help everybody be able to come to those clubs. So yeah, if you want to check out my Patreon, I will leave a link below. But what I'm really hoping to do is to connect those of you who are learning English with those of us who are learning Russian. And there are various tiers there. I also I'm hoping to create kind of a WhatsApp chat group where we have different topics that we talk about for that day, as well as all patrons will get a weekly motivational email of what your goals should be this week, what vocab you should focus on this week. Because for some of us, it's very hard to stay focused when we're learning a foreign language, and there's so much information out there in the world that we're kind of all over the place, and it's really hard to stay focused. So again, that will be launching in June, and I will leave the link for that below. I'm really excited to create. My dream is to create kind of a community, bringing together Russian speakers and English speakers and creating a sort of virtual classroom community for all of us. So again, that'll be starting in June. Thank you to my one patron. I think her name is Kathy, who managed to find my Patreon page and has already become a patron, even though I haven't announced it. So спасибо вам большое. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. I'll get more information about that in upcoming videos as well. So let's go ahead and start on expanding our vocab. These are all the words we're going to cover today. By the end of today, you are going to know these words. And of course, in true College Russian channel fashion, there will be a quiz because I treat this like my classroom. So we're going to have a quiz at the end of the video. So we're going to learn these verbs and really talk about these prefixes. They all have very specific meanings. Not so many adjectives today, but lots of nouns. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is a stoop? The root stoop means to step. And the word stupnya is like a foot, but the bottom of the foot specifically in Russian. This is very odd. Naga is like your foot and your leg combined. And then the bottom of your foot is the stupnya. In English, we have foot and we have leg. We don't really make a distinction between the top of the foot and the bottom of the foot. And then obviously there's a verb stupat, which means to step. And then you have something like stupienki, like stairs, right? So there's the word lesnitsa, yes, but that's like a staircase. And then the actual stairs themselves are called stupienki, like the little stepper things, the little things you step on. Привет, привет вам, Sam. Из Кувейта. Как интересно. Yes, so the sole of the foot. Yeah, that's interesting. We do say that in English. I've never, you say that, we don't talk about that very often unless you're buying shoes or something. We would still just call the stupnya, we'd still just call it our foot. We wouldn't necessarily call it the sole of our foot, again, unless you're buying shoes or something like that, or talking to the doctor. So now, this is a very interesting verb. By the way, some of the verbs that I give you are going to have postupit versus postupat, and that is just verbal aspect. However, this verb, postupat, has one meaning, and postupit, even though they're an aspectual pair, they kind of have two separate meanings. So postupat means to apply to school somewhere, okay? So this meme was probably created by, like, kids in 11th or 12th grade. And it says, когда спрашивают, куда я хочу поступать. Poor seniors, poor those poor students, they're so sick of people asking, where are you going to go to college? Okay, so where are you going to apply to? Now, interestingly, the second we put it into perfective, which is going to be postupit, it means you got in. You got into school. So here's this little meme. She's saying, who got in? I got in, right? So кто поступил? Я поступила. Who got into Harvard? I got into Harvard, right? So again, поступать is to apply to schools. Поступить is to get in. Very interesting there. And then we can create some verbs or some nouns from this as well. Another interesting meaning of поступать is it's really hard to translate into English. Any help in the comments would be great. It means to behave a certain way, to act a certain way, or to do something. Например, here's the famous quote from Forrest Gump. See if you know how to translate this. Дурак тот, кто поступает глупо. Doesn't sound as clever in Russian, but I see if somebody in the comments can try and translate this very famous quote from the movie Forrest Gump. Дурак, a fool, тот, кто поступает глупо. So behave stupid. Fool, behave stupid. What's the Forrest Gump quote? See if anybody knows it, and I'll tell you the answer here in just a minute. Then if we turn this into a noun, поступок, it would mean like the thing you did. Yeah, again, that's a hard one to translate. The thing you did, the way you behaved, kind of thing. So for example, this little meme here, she says, ну разве это взрослый поступок? Вряд ли, вряд ли. So was that an adult way to behave? No, not at all. Not at all. So, ну разве это взрослый поступок? Was that an adult way to behave? Was that an adult thing to do? Was that an adult thing to do? And like, nope. Okay, so nobody has tried to translate the Forrest Gump quote. So here we go. The official translation of that is stupid is as stupid does. That's the молодец, Rachel. Молодец. Stupid is as stupid does. So notice we're not using the verb делать here. Делать is more like to do something productive, whereas поступать is more to behave a certain way. Okay, хорошо. Следующий глагол. Okay, so in previous live streams, you've heard me talk about the meaning of prefixes. So if we know v means into, and then we say stupit, meaning to step. So to step into. So here's a couple of contexts. Законы, вступающие в силу. Okay, so we have an active participle here. And then you might say something like, как удачно вступить в брак, а не ошибиться. right? So I would translate this one as to enter into marriage. How can you successfully enter into marriage and not make a mistake, like not choose the wrong person? And then this one is the more a very common usage of this word, вступить в силу. So a law that's going into effect, that's stepping into effect. Okay. Next one, now we take the opposite prefix, вы. So v means going into, and вы means going out of. So the most common use of this is выступать, выступить. Так? And literally, you're literally saying to step out. And it means in English to perform. And that makes sense when you think about it. You're performing, you're stepping out in front of an audience, you're stepping out onto the stage. That actually does literally make sense. So here's a book. Как без страха выступать перед аудиторией. Yes, to step out of your comfort zone. Very good. So how without fear to perform in front of an audience, Now, a person who is performing might be called a выступающий. Again, this is an active participle, an active present participle, the person who is выступать, the person who is doing that verb. Then, if we want to turn it into a noun, then it becomes a performance. Выступление. Какое хорошее выступление. Какое вдохновляющее выступление. Спасибо за ваше выступление, например. So, thank you for your performance, etc. And then, interestingly, you perform with something. So we'll see an example sentence in our quiz section of today's video. You выступать с песней, например. So you perform with whatever the thing is that you're performing. Then we have something like a выступ. This guy is sitting on a выступ. How would you translate that? It juts out. It steps out over the edge of something. Но сейчас по-русски они говорят so stand up is stand up. Я не знаю, что вы имеете в виду. Вы хотите перевод на русский или вы хотите перевод на английский? То есть stand up, сейчас говорят stand up, это значит stand up, because вы сидите и вы встаете, чтобы выступить. Да? So it's called a stand-up comedian. Stand-up comedian. Good. So I hope I answered that question there. So anybody know how you would translate выступ? Выступ. Look where he's sitting. It's the step that like juts out over the edge. So it would also be, drum roll, the ledge of something. So да, вот. Okay, следующий глагол. This is the one I was talking about spring. Наступить. So this has three meanings. Literally, to step on something. Я наступил на очки. I stepped on glasses. Я наступил на иголку, for example. I stepped on a needle. It can literally mean to step on something. Secondly, as we talked about with spring, to kind of, this is such a hard one to translate. To come into effect, to start, to begin, kind of. So, so this is the Russian version of spring. Our version of spring here in Washington is very different than the Russian version of spring. Russians, a lot of them don't love. A lot of them don't love spring because they associate it with mud and and puch. If you don't know what puch is, you got to look up puch. It's quite the interesting phenomenon that's all over in Russia. Good. So good. I like that. Interesting. Step into a new season, right? You're stepping into a new season. So this is the Russian version of spring. Ура, наступила весна. Mud everywhere, potholes because the snow is all melted. And so it's total chaos. Then the third meaning of наступить means to attack in like a war sense. You step on another country. So украинская армия пошла в наступление в Бахмуте. So I would translate this, if I were being a fancy translator, I would say is on the offensive, is on the attack in Bakhmut. This is and when you're talking about the war in Ukraine, you're going to see this verb all over the place. It's not вторжение, which means an invasion. It's specifically an offensive. Yes, an advance. I like that. That's really nice. An advance or the offensive, например, наступательные возможности, способности врага, the offensive capabilities of the enemy. So you'll very much see this word when it comes to the offensive, and then also like attack as well. Okay, следующий. Оступиться. Okay, so not at, be very careful. Not об, not at. Оступиться. When we have the prefix o plus reflexive ending, I like that. Silky says it comes from like the concept of forward march, right? So you step forward. That's very interesting way of thinking about it. Оступиться, the prefix o, when it's paired with ся ending, not always, but a lot of the times, it can mean that something was done by mistake. So, for example, you might have a slip of tongue, оговорка. You accidentally said something you weren't supposed to say. Опечатка, if you're reading a text and there's something wrong there, it's an опечатка, a typo. They wrote something wrong. They printed something wrong. And then look right here where this little inspirational quote. Не смотри туда, где ты упал, а туда, где ты оступился. So this we would translate as to stumble, to trip and fall, to stumble. So you're literally, yes, except for typo is spelled with only one O, silky wilky. It's that says typo. We only want one O. Typo. So this inspirational quote is, don't look where you fell, but look where you stumbled instead, if you want to fix the problem. So you don't misstep. You don't take a wrong step. Oh, I see it. I get it. Okay, good one. The problem is I am texting all day with a non-native English speaker, i.e. my husband, who's Brazilian. And so he does write that kind of thing. And I try and correct his English all the time. So to stumble, to step by mistake, to trip. Good. Now we do the prefix от, which means away from, to step away from. So this was a famous movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme. See if you can figure out the translation. Не отступать и не сдаваться. So see if you can figure out the translation. I'm not sure what year this came out. Maybe 80s, 90s. It was a Jean-Claude Van Damme kind of martial arts show. And again, it's the Cold War. We've got Советский Союз. It's a fighting movie. Does anybody know the translation? Не отступать. So don't step away from. Don't step away from. И не сдаваться. Don't give up. Anybody know the translation of this movie? All right, here we go. I'll show it to you. No retreat, no surrender. No retreat. So отступить, отступление is to retreat, to step back, to kind of, especially, again, it's the opposite of наступить. So наступить is forward march. Отступить is backward march. Go back, retreat, right? Yeah, step down. You could say step down, although, yeah, in war terminology, it's probably more correct to say retreat, step back, to step back. Okay, хорошо. So again, think of наступление and отступление as opposites of each other. Вот, this is a really great word. I remember hearing the first time, good, don't back down. Очень хорошо. I remember the first time I heard this, I tried to call a friend's phone in Moscow, and it said, номер недоступен в данный момент, something like that. So, and this was my first time hearing this adjective. So, до means up until, and then stoop. So this one is more, if you called a number and it said, в данный момент номер недоступен. What do you think that means? Недоступен is a short form adjective. That's a masculine. Недоступен, она недоступна. Оно недоступно, они недоступны. Here's another quote. Земные девушки легко доступны. So the translation of that is earth girls are easy. So if something is недоступны, it's inaccessible. It's not accessible. And that's how you would kind of say that, like, that's it's, maybe this building is not accessible. See, and you would see it in this kind of context. When we put that ost on ending, it becomes oftentimes in English, it has an ity translation. So accessibility. So this was accessible. And now we put the ost ending. It turns into a noun. By the way, all nouns ending in ost, with the exception of gost, are feminine. Feminine. Okay. So accessibility for invalidov. That's a horrible sounding word in English, like invalids, but meaning people with disabilities. So yeah, accessibility. Also unavailable. Good job. Another, especially when it's talking about a telephone number, this number is unavailable. This number is currently unavailable, kind of thing, as well. And again, this is often used to describe prices, products. Это недоступно людям среднего класса, например. Да? So that's not accessible. That's not affordable for people from the middle class type thing. Так, окей, вот доступность. Потом, if you're ever in the metro in Russia, you'll see these signs. It says, уважайте друг друга, уступайте места пожилым людям, инвалидам, пассажирам с детьми и беременным женщинам. When I was there in Russia, I always thought this was so nice. I wasn't pregnant or anything, but still people would see, if I had my hands full, они уступали свои места. They would give up their seats. So this one doesn't, have a literal translation so much with these prefixes, but it means to offer up, to give up your seats to somebody else. Так. Okay, this is a big one. If you guys watched my live stream about crime and punishment, I can leave a link to it. It was a fun one because so much of understanding Dostoevsky is what's in metonymy, meaning he uses kind of the deeper meaning of words to convey a message. So especially the word преступление, we see it really played out throughout the novel. Raskolnikov, this is a famous line from Crime and Punishment. He says, смогу ли я переступить или не смогу? So пере means across, and then stoop means to step. So can he step across? Is he one of these Napoleons who is allowed to commit a sin or commit a crime and get away with it? That's what he wants to know. Can I step across from right to wrong and not get punished for it? So a lot of people, when I did that live stream, they said, a great translation of преступление is transgression, which there we can really see it. We can see that concept of stepping across, transgression. In English, the prefix trans means across. So stepping across. Now the пере in Old Church Slavonic was written as pre. So that's why the verb version, the literal version, is переступить, which literally means to step across. And then when we take a more abstract concept like crime, again, abstract concepts in Russian tend to be borrowed from Old Church Slavonic, whereas the literal concrete version of it will be in Old Russian. So преступление is an Old Church Slavonic origin word, and then переступить is more Old Russian. So преступление means crime, but it literally means stepping across, a transgression. So for example, here's some more concepts of this. Преступность. So there's a difference between преступление and преступность. Преступность is like crime rate or the problem of crime, criminality type thing. So, например, преступность в России. And then look at this statistic. 1,332,977 sorry, I can't read it very well because it's like really light. So потерпевшие от преступления. So there was in Russia in 2021, there were 1 million, this number, I don't even want to have to pronounce that, people who were the victim of crimes, преступления, and that is the concept of criminality or a crime rate. Now, when we see this suffix nik, chik, things like that, it usually means a person who is that. So what do you think this means? I remember this is my first time seeing the word criminal in Russian was this old plakat, this old Soviet poster. Преступник тот, кто режет молодняк. Молодняк. So this is super weird. So he's saying a criminal is that who kills a young animal. So, and then if you read the rest of this propaganda poster, I guess at this time in Soviet history, they were having a problem with a shortage of livestock. So they're saying when you kill the young, when you kill a calf, you're essentially starving the country. So преступник means a criminal. Так. Okay, so then one time I was teaching an advanced Russian class, and one of my native Russian students came up to me, and she asked, "What's the difference between преступить?" She can't hear. Her Russian ear cannot hear the difference between преступить and приступить. That's a hard one for a Russian to hear. They can't hear the difference. So she went all these years not realizing that there were two separate words. So приступить, whereas преступить or переступить means to go across, приступить means to step up to something, like to step towards something. Now, in everyday speech, приступить is like, shall we begin? Shall we begin? It's a kind of a fancy, it's in the same way in English when we say, okay, so shall we begin? It sounds very formal. That's kind of the same thing. So that, see, get this meme. They would say something like, ну что ж, приступим. Like, okay, well, shall we begin? And see that's the raccoon. Енот is like, ну что ж, приступим, right? And again, it's just a fancy way of saying like, all right, shall we get to it? Shall we hop to it? Shall we begin? Etc. And then literally, приступка is a stepping stool. The thing you step up to get closer toward something, right? Приступка. So again, the prefix при means toward, arrival, coming towards something. Приступка. And then this constant приступить means to like start doing something. Yeah. And again, the most common way you would hear it is like, ну что ж, приступим. All right, shall we begin? To commence. Yes, very good. Очень хорошо. Следующее. Okay, and then this is the last one because I love roots that have, or I love words that have multiple roots. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to really break this one down. We have two roots happening in this word. I've never even said this word out loud in my life, so hopefully I get the correct word stress. Богоотступничество. Богоотступничество. So here's our first root, Бог. Then we have stoop, but we have отступ. Do you remember what отступить means? So what are you doing in this? Or a similar concept, вероотступничество, богоотступничество. So see if you can figure out how to translate these. So here's an example. Поэт Ашраф Файярд, good, приговорен к смертной, sorry, I can't see this very well, к смертной казни за вероотступничество в Саудовской Аравии. No. Okay. So Bog means God. Vera means faith. And then you're stepping away from it. What do we call this in English? There's a little hint right here. So for example, because I was Mormon and I'm no longer Mormon, some of my family would call me a bogоотступник. Bogоотступник. I was religious and now I don't want to be Mormon anymore. So my family in English calls me apostate. I'm apostate. I believed and now I don't believe. So this would be богоотступничество or вероотступничество would be apostasy. Вероотступничество, for example, somebody was sentenced to the death penalty in Saudi Arabia for apostasy, right? Interesting. Again, it's like you're not going to really need that in everyday speech. But I love these words that have two roots because you see how expressive the Russian language is. You can put lots of different things together. And if you understand those roots, you can kind of figure out what it means, right? Okay, Теперь, it is quiz time. You are in the college Russian classroom. And again, my whole point is teaching you, not necessarily entertaining you. It is to teach you and to hold you to high standards, just like you would have if you were in a classroom. So, are you ready for your quiz? I'm going to put these up on the screen. I will read them off, and I want you to try and translate what all of these sentences would be. Again, think back of what the root means, what those prefixes mean, and then look at the surrounding context to see if you can make sense of it. Are we ready for quiz time? And for those of you who already speak Russian, again, this is great practice for your English. How would you translate these words into English? Хорошо. So, как наступает депрессия? Постепенно, а потом внезапно. Так, номер 2. Во Франции пенсионная реформа вступит в силу осенью 2023 года. There was big protests in France recently, and as a result, they have said, okay, новая реформа вступит в силу осенью. Так. Next one. Новое лечение от рака будет доступно всем детям в Австралии. Будет доступно всем детям в Австралии. Again, I hope you're quizzing yourselves here. This is how we improve our vocabulary. Is we need to have like that moment of accountability where we really push ourselves to demonstrate that we've learned the word. Next. Конгрессмен США впервые выступил с речью, написанной чат GPT. Интересно. Вот. Again, remember how I told you, actually, no, that'll give it away. That'll give the translation away. I'm not going to tell you. Я очень ругаю себя за этот I can't read that. Необдуманный поступок. Я очень ругаю себя. Какая я глупая. Я дура. Блин, я ругаю себя за этот необдуманный поступок. Необдуманный поступок. Так. Okay. Quiz time is about to come to an end. We're about to correct your work. Are you ready? Anybody want to take a gander and type your answers to some of them? Here we go. Первое предложение, номер 1. Как наступает депрессия? Постепенно, а потом внезапно. So remember, наступать had 3 meanings. Literally, to step on. 2, to attack or to go on the offensive, especially in a war setting. And then 3, to start, to kind of go into effect, right? To like a season, something that kind of starts up, for example. So this would be, why does depression start? Like, how does it start happening? First, it starts gradually, постепенно, and then suddenly. Вот. Okay? Хорошо. Следующий. Вот. Во Франции пенсионная реформа вступит в силу осенью 2023 года. So, remember to step in. And then we have the word sila, which means strength or effect. So in France, retirement reform is going to go into effect in the fall of 2023. Так, окей, хорошо. Новое лечение, I cannot think of this word. Treatment. New treatment for cancer будет доступно всем. You can reach it. You can access it. So it's going to be available to all children in Austria. A new cancer treatment is going to be available to all children in Australia. Congressman США впервые, for the first time, so a US congressman, for the first time, выступил с речью. He performed a speech. So notice we don't say, in English, we don't say to perform with a speech. We don't say to perform with a song. We just say to perform a speech. To give a speech is actually more authentic in English. To give a speech, or he performed a speech. But in Russian, you perform with a song, or you perform with a speech, or with a dance. So he gave a speech that was written. We have a participle here, a passive past participle, by ChatGPT, or like into AI. And then lastly, я очень ругаю себя. I really like, I'm hard on myself. I beat myself up for this. Необдуманный means, see if you can identify the word root here. Обдумать. Так, обдумать. Я не думала об этом. So this, geez, this is a hard one. Abdominal? No, it's not abdominal. Abdumani. Creative, very creative. But no, abdumani is the thing you didn't really think through. You didn't think it through. You didn't think about it. Ab, the prefix ob to means in all directions, in all around. So you did not think about all the aspects of this action that you did. So не обдуманный. Again, I don't even know how to translate this. I didn't think through that poorly thought out action. It sounds horrible in English. It doesn't sound natural, but a поступок is like thing to do. This action, this thing you did. Impulsive. О, очень красиво. Молодец. Очень хорошо. Impulsive. Impulsive means you did it without thinking. Очень хорошо. Jennifer. Молодец. Вы хороший переводчик. Impulsive. You did not think through it. You did not think about it. You did not think it through. And then поступок, like I said, is a hard one to translate. It can translate in different ways into English, but it essentially means action, behavior, the thing you did, thing to do, etc. So I hope that was helpful. Again, these are really useful. This is a really useful word root that you really see in a lot of interesting places. And I remember we covered this word root in my classes, and it was fun. We didn't speak Russian quite well enough at this point when I was in Moscow, and our teacher really illustrated all of this. She would get up in front of the classroom and step on something or step across something. And I think this is a really great word root to illustrate the prefixes. Again, if you haven't memorized the literal meaning of these prefixes, your vocab is going to expand exponentially. It's going to grow very quickly if you can learn these. And for those of you who are not, who haven't learned, or for those of you who are learning English, I'm sorry, English is not as organized as, it's not не такой необдуманный, это необдуманный язык. It's not a well thought through language like Russian is. So again, I hope for those of you who are trying to learn English that you guys will come and join me over at Patreon. Once I get, like I said, all of these new perks are going to come into effect starting in June. I've just got to finish out my semester here in college in my college classes. And then we're going to create this fun little community. It's going to be fun. And you guys can pair up with each other. You don't even need me. You can get each other's contact information. Wow. Thank you, Silky Wilky. Спасибо вам большое. Вот. And спасибо вам за ваши комментарии. Это было очень весело читать все, что вы написали. Спасибо большое. Again, I would love to create, this is my dream, is to create a classroom. If you're ever in my classrooms in a university, I have students who got married. Like I create an actual community in my classrooms. Everybody's friends for life. Like I said, I had 2 of my students get married and they had a baby, and I call their baby my grand student. So I'm hoping to create that community with those of you who are learning English and those of us who are learning Russian, and we're going to help each other. So please come over, come find I'll leave a link to my Patreon page in the link below. And then starting in June, all of those benefits are going to come into effect, and we'll be starting up that conversation club mentioned right here, as well as access to materials and live streams and all the, again, the weekly motivation emails and the chat where it's essentially a chat that's a constant Q&A / share funny memes / practice vocabulary / check-in / accountability partner. So again, I think it's going to be a fun little community that we're going to have over here on Patreon. So, хорошо, это все на сегодня. I will see you guys all next week on my channel, and I'll please leave any comments below if there's a certain word root you'd like to see me cover. I will do it gladly. And это все на сегодня. Спасибо вам большое. Спасибо вам большое. До свидания.